Are you ready?
Starting now?
Well, now you just messed it up, you knob. God, you know that the shit that we go through for this, huh?
I know. Fuckers better appreciate it. When we started, we were just like, yeah, we're just going to do this, man. You know, shoot our wad into the wind and see what happens. What's the title of this podcast again?
I don't know. Objects, I don't know. Something with a penis, I guess.
Right.
Our fucking faces are everywhere now.
Right.
You know, but
You're welcome, ladies.
Right. Popular with the ladies. Right. Oh, I'm not even going to apologize because hopefully it sounds fucking hilarious.
Yeah, totally. This is fucking explicit now.
The explicit button. Let me use my finger.
La, 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 la.
It is time for another episode of Sober, Not Mature. And that episode starts now. All right, everyone. Welcome once again to another episode of Sober, Not Mature. And yes, this week we made you wait. Well, actually, we made you wait a year. then we made you wait 3 more weeks.
Right.
But yes, tonight we've got her back. Hopefully, maybe she'll even co-sign a little bit more of our bullshit. But yeah, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it is Dr. Sarah.
Yay.
Yay. Welcome, Dr. Sarah. You know what I figured out, Mike? We actually have we've got sound effects on here that I could actually add I can add audio clips. I won't test it out now, but I looked it up as I was waiting. But yeah, we can add fun stuff. Maybe we could do add clapping or some stupid shit to this.
All right.
You guys are very talented in that department. I love all your funny stuff.
Yeah, you know, the thing of it is, it has nothing to do with talent. We've learned, literally, and I mean this sincerely, that the end product now, I'm very proud of it. I know Mike's proud of it. It sounds wonderful. It sounds, and I'm going to use big air quotes here, professional-ish. But the thing of it is we've learned by making a lot of fucking mistakes over the last 2.5 years, which you know, because you're doing your thing.
Amen.
And we do want to talk. We want to talk about not just your YouTube, because it's now a podcast. Obviously, we're going to talk more about your book. Anyone who didn't listen to Dr. Sarah when we had her on before, it has been a little over a year, episode 72. At some other point, I usually tell people to stop and go back. Don't stop now. Go back and listen to Dr. Sarah. I actually re-listened to that about a month ago, and I don't know if we can do any better tonight. I'll tell you that much. So
wow. Wow, you guys, that's too flattering. Thank you.
I'm just fucking around.
We had a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. But,
yeah, we did.
So, I mean, we've got a lot of things, and we really have no plan. A few weeks ago when obviously we had her set to come on to begin with, we had a slight technical issue. No big deal. Got it all squared away. But the Dr. Sarah texted me. We're going back and forth, and then she's like, "So, what are we going to talk about? Do we have a plan, or are we just going to wing it?" And I just laughed, and I'm like, "Wing it." I said, "We'll talk about the book. We'll talk about the podcast. Find out what you're up to." I do have a few things that I'll end up asking throughout, but I don't know. I mean, let us know. First of all, remind people. I guess just briefly.
Who are you?
Yeah, who are you? Yeah, who are you?
Mike,
yeah, who are
you?
How you got here? How long you've been sober? Just a brief
You're
thing
so
like
hilarious.
that, so people remember. Okay.
Well, my son says I'm 100 years old, and you know, I mean, sometimes I feel it, to be honest with you. Yeah. But yeah, so my name is Dr. Sarah Michaud. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I've worked with addiction for over 30 years, and I just celebrated 40 years of sobriety in February, which is freaking mind-boggling. I know, which makes me feel old. Yeah. So, so I got sober when I was 24. My drugs of choice were everything, but cocaine especially, and alcohol.
Right.
And I always say I was really grateful for the drugs because the drugs brought me down really quickly. I probably could have drank for God knows, maybe a lot longer. But when
Mm-hmm.
you're doing drugs, as you guys know, you usually get into illegal activities of some
Mm-hmm.
kind.
No.
So, yeah. So, I mean, yeah, that got me into a lot of trouble. But ultimately, crashed and burned 1984. I'm a class of 84. So, yeah.
Nice.
Nice.
Yeah. And really just love recovery. And I'm sure we could talk a lot about the codependency too. I mean, the way I got it's so funny. This is what I'm going to say, and you guys and I can riff on this. But I was at a
Mm-hmm.
meeting recently, and there was probably, I don't know, 30 people there, and probably 20 of the people that shared used the word people pleasing. And I
Mm.
remember thinking to myself, like, wow, my theory about, addiction, not my only theory, but I do think that a lot of times some of the underlying issues is the codependency. It's those relational dynamics and things that go on in our childhoods or whatever fears we have
Mm.
that lead to needing to detach from ourselves. And
Mm-hmm.
it just seems like I know so many people in recovery who struggle. And I was going to ask you guys about your relationships. That's where I was going to take
Mm-hmm.
this.
All right.
Maybe between the two of
Yeah,
us, or
because I think so many folks have issues with relationships in sobriety. You
Mm-hmm.
know plenty of people that are sober a long time and still struggling.
Mm-hmm.
So I just think it's a huge thing, and really it's weird having these headphones on, to be honest with you, because
Yeah.
it's like reverbing in my ears, but I'll do the best I can. But yeah, lots of folks in sobriety struggle with relationships. And I know lots of people, and I do too, that are in unhappy relationships,
Mm-hmm.
are unable to express what they want or need,
Mm-hmm.
are unable to speak up, are still compromising themselves, are full of resentment. So, yeah, I think it's a big deal for people in recovery, but also just for anybody. Part
Sure.
of why I wrote, go ahead.
No, no, no. Go ahead. I was
I
just
was going to
agreeing with
say
you.
I was going to say part of why I wrote the book is, codependency, like, of course, the awareness of it started with Bill and Lois, right? Back in the
Right.
50s or whatever. And then all of a sudden, 60s, 70s, all these books came out about codependency, Codependent No More with Melody Beattie. And originally, it was really about the kind of stereotype of the male alcoholic and the woman who's codependent with the, wanting to get her
Mm-hmm.
husband sober. But codependency definitely occurs when you're in a relationship with an addict, but I have discovered that literally it's everywhere. In fact, one of my chapters is called It's Everywhere, because it's people with their kids, it's people with their best friends, it's people with their bosses. It's not just around addiction. It's
Mm-hmm.
any place that you feel more concerned with what the other person is thinking or saying or doing rather than what's important to you. So
Mm-hmm.
basically it's a type of relating where you're coming from fear. You're afraid to be who you really want to be
Mm-hmm.
because of how someone's going to respond to you.
Hmm.
So
right.
go ahead.
Well, no, I was just going to say that literally that's one of the that's one of the things I wrote down. I think it was either from another. I think it was one of your Crazy Town podcast episodes. I was listening to those here and there when I was driving,
Yeah.
and I wrote that down. That you said that everyone is codependent in some way, and that's what I was going to ask you what you meant by that, or what some of the ways are. And the thing of it is, and I'm sure I have no doubt that a lot of the codependency and there well. A lot of relationship issues probably come from people looking at alcoholic families or abusive families and all those
Yep.
sort of things. But I based on what you said, I guess I was going. The main question is, what are some of the ways that you think that, let's say, outside of even the addiction community or the recovery community, what are some of the main ways that just everyday people are codependent? I know you said kids and stuff, but what other ways?
All right. So I'm all right. Truth, I'm dating someone right now.
That was another one of my questions. I got a whole thing down here. We can go
Okay.
into that. Let's
So
go into that. Let's go into
yeah,
that.
I mean, so it's going on 4 months, and I am telling you guys, it is so shocking to me. I've written a book. I've been married twice. I haven't been in a relationship. I mean, I've dated a few people, but not in a relationship, probably for over 10 years. I
Mm-hmm.
think I'm very independent. I think I can speak my mind. I think I know what I want. And I get into this relationship, and he will ask me a simple question like, do you want to go to the beach tomorrow? And the next thing you know, I'm like hemming and hawing in my mind, like, do I really want to go to the beach? What does he want? Does he want to go to the beach tomorrow? I mean, it's so insidious and crazy. And that's just like a very simple example, but it's this whole idea of I'm already thinking about what I think someone else wants rather than what do I want?
Mm-hmm.
Really sitting with, and again, this is a simple example, and I give examples in the book about restaurants. Like you're with your spouse and they say to you, what do you feel like eating? And the person goes, I don't care. What do you want to eat?
Right.
Right?
Yeah, like every weekend.
The question is, you may not care. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're someone that can eat anything. I'm someone
Mm-hmm.
like that. But maybe some night you really do, and you want to say, go have Italian food. But
Mm-hmm.
for some reason, you can't say that. And this is
Mm.
a very, like, this happens all the time. And so the question is, why? Why can't I speak up for what I want and need in a relationship? And it can be from very small things like what restaurant I want to go to huge things like
Right.
where do you want to live? And, I've had clients that, are in pretty serious, big time conflicts in their relationships and just end up, and I say this in the book, I have a quote in the book around this, around people are so afraid of conflict or expressing what they want for a variety of reasons. It could be because I'm afraid you're going to get mad at me. It could
Mm-hmm.
be I'm afraid of you abandoning me. It could be I'm afraid of rejection. I mean, codependency's source is really fear.
Mm-hmm.
And when you think about addiction, really that's similar also. But
Mm-hmm.
so it can be small things or big things. And the thing is, if you dismiss yourself enough over time, from small things to big things, whether it's not speaking up to your boss, whether it's not setting a limit with your kid, whether it's telling your best friend you're upset with them, whether it's, I have a guy right now sending me emails about a sponsor, right? Which is
Mm-hmm.
fascinating. He says his sponsor is super controlling. He's constantly demanding him to do things he doesn't want to do. And I mean, it's been a long relationship. It's not like this is a new, the guy's done some work,
Right.
but he can't seem to speak up to this guy that seems super controlling. So this is a really, this is a classic kind of, recovery example of a codependent relationship where he doesn't feel he can say anything because his sponsor will just basically shame him and tell him he's wrong
Mm-hmm.
rather than having a discussion. And I
Right.
mean,
I mean, so
there, go ahead.
yeah, I'm just curious how much time this guy has, not the sponsor, but the sponsee.
He has quite a bit of time. He's been
Okay.
around a long time.
All
So
right.
that's what I mean. It's not
Well,
like
I
a
mean,
newcomer. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Yeah. You would
right.
think he would be okay with
Well,
speaking up, right?
I would think that he wouldn't need a controlling sponsor at this point if he's got that much
You
time.
would think.
Right.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, it sounds like they both need to work on some stuff.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we all do, but geez. Right. I mean, what I was thinking, you were talking about, it's a difficult balance for me because, being an alcoholic and an addict,
Yep.
you were talking about, being concerned of what others think.
Yes.
I've got to be really careful with that. Yes, because being a selfish and self-centered alcoholic,
Right.
I don't give a fuck what other people think. So
I love you, Mike.
but I have to kind of care what other people think, because my old lifestyle was I didn't care what anybody thought. And so I've got to balance that.
Right.
Which,
and I mean, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to say we could do a deep dive with that, because like, I'm sure on one hand, you really don't care. Like
Right.
you don't.
I don't.
Right.
No.
But at the same, all right. But at the same time, okay.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, that whole way of being, like, I don't give a fuck, is a defense.
Of course.
Okay, now I'm going to shrink. So if someone kind of says, like, I don't care about whatever they're doing or whatever they're thinking, it is a way of defending against my underlying hurt or pain or disappointing someone or whatever. Right.
Right.
So, I mean, it's both. It's both. Yeah.
Right. But again, but I have to balance it, because, after doing all this work and being sober and, working the program and everything, I actually do care what other people think now,
Of course.
right. And how they feel and whatever. It's, I've had to turn it around and, I not be so concerned about how I feel.
All right.
Fuck your feelings, right?
Exactly.
Fuck your feelings. This is the thing though. Okay. I'm going to make a distinction. It's one thing for me to care about how my partner feels. Like I could, I could validate him. I could say, geez, I understand how you might be upset with me, or I understand how you feel that way.
Right.
It's another thing though, for me to disregard myself, right? And make his feelings the priority, because
course.
I'm afraid of what he's going to do. So that's the distinction.
Right.
It's like, yeah, caring is one thing, but codependency is another.
Right. Caring is one thing, but causing yourself pain and misery and whatever, to make them feel good is just as bad. Absolutely.
Right.
And you mentioned people pleasing also, which I think this all codependency, I think, is people pleasing, if nothing else, are part of, and that's something that I know to begin with. And Mike and I have talked about that, I think, on here, Mike, with, I can still be a people pleaser to certain individuals, not everyone, because I've gotten to the point, to Mike's point, is that, I think that we've got 14, not 40 years, but, a couple years in this thing, and gotten to a point where we're comfortable and confident with ourselves and where we are, and we know we've done the work, and we know we're trying to do good, so we have that going for us. I guess that's one side. But when I first got sober, it was really hard for me to say no to anyone, family, friends, kids, my ex, anything like that, because at that point I'm like, I owe these people.
We're trying to balance the leisure at that point.
Oh God, yeah. It's like I need to do everything for everyone, and at that point, I didn't care. I sacrificed, if I want to put it that way, my own feelings, but it wasn't a sacrifice. But it still comes down to like my children. I mean, my kids, thankfully, they're beautiful human beings. Neither one of them take advantage of me, and I think I'd be able to see it if they did, but they don't. They're truly good human beings, But the thing of it is what I tell them is, I said, ask me anything and ask me for anything. If I have the ability to do it, or the funds, or the means, or whatever the thing is, if I can do it, I will. But if I can't, I'm going to tell you why.
Brilliant.
And in turn, what happens, like my daughter, I'm her go-to, to babysit my grandson, and I don't live next door to her, but I appreciate that fact. I can't always do it. She always says, if you can't, don't, no big deal. If you can't take off work, no big deal. I do whatever I can because it benefits I enjoy it, number one, and I know how important it is to be in a child's life and in her life, but I also know that if I say no, she'll understand. If I had this feeling that she would get upset about it, it would bother me. And there's been people in my life since I've been sober, not family members or anything like that, but I've run across people, mainly people that, you talk about these. I haven't had full term relationships, but I've been involved with people, two off the top of my head, where basically I knew if I said no, it was going to cause a problem. And then basically I did it because I'm like, fuck it.
Right.
I'd rather have the conflict than do
Right.
something I don't want to do.
Yeah.
But my point there is that I know I can still be a people pleaser. I know I can be, I'm sure I've got codependency in me, crazy, enough of it,
Yep.
in there. But I don't know. I think what you were talking about, and Mike was talking about that balance. It's difficult to
Yes.
balance it out. What do I want to do versus somebody else? Something like you said, as much as, do you want to go to the goddamn beach? What do you want to eat?
Right.
I learned an old trick years ago as a sales trick. It doesn't always work, but a lot of times it does. If you want Italian, for instance, Sarah, go to your individual, whoever it is. If it's a friend, it's if your significant other, say, okay, do you want to go, have, I don't know, Thai food or Italian food?
There you
Human
go.
nature usually makes people pick the second choice that you give them.
Oh,
I
that's
don't,
so interesting.
I don't know why. I learned it in a sales program, and I would say probably 2 out of 3 times at least it'll go in your direction. If you
Wow.
said, do you want to go to Burger King or McDonald's, it's the last thing that they heard, so that's what they choose.
That's fascinating.
Try
Good
it. I
tip,
mean,
my friend.
well, and
Now,
again, it doesn't always work, but sometimes then you're I don't know, tricking them into it, but yeah, you're a
You
psychologist.
manipulative bastard.
You're a
listen,
psychologist. Use some psychology on these
you are so
motherfuckers and
cute.
get your goddamn Italian food.
So listen, I want to talk about people pleasing for a second.
Sure.
Right?
First of all, do you know Will Arnett? He does
Yeah.
the Smart List podcast. Okay, he has a famous quote. He says, "People pleasing doesn't please anyone." And the thing with people pleasing is the delusion is I'm doing this thing because I want to please my kid or my partner or whatever. I'm doing this thing because I really feel like I have to do this thing. And what we make up in our heads is it's to make someone else happy. But that's what I call the big lie. Because codependent behavior is never really about the other person. It seems that way. Oh, I want my husband to get sober. Oh, I want my kid to get into this college. Oh, I want I don't know, my best friend to be happy, so I'm going to do X. The thing about people pleasing behavior is it's really about not being able to tolerate what I'm really feeling. So, this is the thing, if I'm people pleasing a partner, a boyfriend, it's because I can't tolerate the discomfort of the reality of saying the truth to them. So maybe the truth is, I don't want to go to the beach, right? But I say, oh, sure, I'll go because I think they're going to be happy. It's really about me not wanting to tolerate the possibility of conflict, the possibility of someone rejecting me, the possibility of someone getting mad. So again, this codependent kind of paradigm comes across like it's about the other person, but codependency is really about us. That's the really important piece. I mean, and again, you know this, growth in AA or whatever program you're doing is always going to be uncomfortable. I mean, having uncomfortable feelings is part of being human, but we're addicts. And I will tell you right now, I just said to my sweetheart on the phone an hour ago, I am tired of being uncomfortable because I literally have been uncomfortable for 4 months.
All right.
Because it's all new behavior. And it's really interesting that it doesn't matter really how long you've been sober. It doesn't matter how much work you've done. When you, and you guys, I want to hear what your experiences have been, because when you like someone or when you're in the initial stages of dating or whatever, it's nerve-wracking. I always say every old issue that you've had in your entire life gets activated in the first 90 days of a new romantic relationship, because all of our fears are up in our face. Like, you want to be liked, you want to be respected, you don't want to upset the person, you want to connect. Like, all of these things are happening, and meanwhile, simultaneously, all your old wounds, whatever those are, your guys, of being hurt, of being ashamed, of having someone reject you, of whatever, are kind of happening in a parallel space. So it's a real kind of, it's funny. And this is the last thing I'll say on this, but there's an old theory of like the stages of romantic relationships. And I've been thinking about this recently. Like the first 90 days is like total fantasy and delusion, right? The hormones are going,
right.
You're totally feeling like the person is the hottest person in the world. You're like in love, quote unquote. Everything seems to be gelling. Oh my God, I've never met anyone like this in my life, right? So that's the first 90 days. And then you go into this phase of 3 to 6 months, which is called disillusionment, which is when you realize, oh my God, this is another separate human being.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, they like that TV show and I don't. They like that sport. I don't. They don't like to read and I do, or whatever the stuff is.
Right.
And you start recognizing your differences. And that can throw the balance off, because you go from this very intense, like, we're in love type of thing, to like, wow, okay, now I see you. Now I'm seeing these different parts of you. And in this certain theory, and I can't even remember where I read it, at 6 months, they called it war, which is basically where you decide, like, look, either we're going to work through these differences and really get to what real love is about, or we really recognize that this isn't going to work. So I've just been thinking about that, because my sweetheart and I definitely have been in this kind of love zone. And now I think we're both kind of looking at each other and saying, what are our differences? And are we going to kind of get to the next stage? So I'm on a rant, but
no, I mean that's important. So you wanted to ask us how our
I wanted to ask you guys about your like history of romantic relationships or just relationships, and like, do you see patterns? Like, have you guys been able to recognize your own patterns in relationships? I mean, you've done step work and all that stuff, so I'm sure you've seen some stuff. Have you seen, like, when I do the 4th step with people, I always try to help them identify, like, what are their 3 top fears that lead to their self-seeking behaviors, their behaviors that they do out of fear that end up not getting them what they want. What are those patterns? So can you speak to that at all?
I mean, okay.
We're diving in, Mike.
We are. No, it's fine. Okay, so this is kind of a thumbnail of my history. I wasn't in a relationship for a very long time. My only relationship was me and my substances.
Absolutely.
Right. Especially, the last 8 years or so I was out there. I mean, I just didn't, I'd occasionally hook up or whatever, but that was
absolutely.
I mean, I just wasn't, because I knew anybody was going to get in the way of me and my substances. And I didn't want that.
Of course.
So I got sober, right? The rule of thumb is, wait a year. I waited 5.
Good for you.
Yeah, whatever. Well, we'll see.
Well,
hang on.
It wasn't that easy.
No, it was.
Okay.
It certainly wasn't. I finally did. And it was all kinds of screwed up and wrong. And
why?
I was lied to.
So you picked someone that betrayed you?
Yeah, sort of. And I allowed it to happen. I know I take my responsibility, my side of it, and all of that. She was in California. It was mutual. We had mutual friends, and so she moved to Cleveland with me. And she said she was 5 years sober. She absolutely was not. And
wow.
Right. And it was just, it was.
Was she using?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, so that's God. Oh my God, Mike, this is a whole other episode.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah. In my house. I mean, not horribly, but she wasn't like, but she was. Yeah, she was doing pills and stuff, and yeah,
So tricky though.
Absolutely.
So tricky.
Right.
I mean, that's why I wrote the book. I mean, my God. Same thing happened.
I let it go on for a little too long. I should have cut it off sooner, but I didn't, and it resolved itself. She couldn't stand being with a sober person,
right?
And so she left, and that was great. And
all right, so let me ask you something.
Go ahead.
All right, so because I think a lot of times with relationships too, and I talk about this in the book around codependency, like the same components of addiction, like minimizing, rationalizing, denial, romanticizing, all of those cognitive components.
Right.
I do think we do similar things initially in a relationship because you know what? We want what we want.
Right.
So
absolutely.
when you look back, and I had to do this with my own, marriage, when you look back, do you say to yourself, wow, gee, there was a red flag and I dismissed it? Or
yeah, many.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and it was and it was actually, it was good. It was a learning experience. I learned what not to do.
Absolutely.
Right. And it was what it was, and it was experience I needed to go through. It was my little training relationship in sobriety. And then not too long after that, I met another woman who I've been with for 8 years now.
Got it.
Yeah, right. And but I learned my mistakes, and I learned I found my boundaries, and this relationship is very different than anyone I've ever had before. I truly incorporate the things I've learned in the program in this relationship. We don't live together. We never have.
Got it.
How
is it different? When you say it's much different, how is it different?
Well, I mean, like every one of my relationships back when I was using, I use them for survival.
Right.
Yes. Right. I mean, that's my pattern. Always has been. And I didn't with this first one in sobriety, but she did to me. And I went,
right.
Oh, that's interesting. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. I get it. Ouch.
Right.
That's what I'd say. Ouch.
And it's fine. It's what needed to happen. I needed to see that other side. No, it's just All right,
let me ask you one other
Go
question.
Ahead.
All right, because I get my mind is spinning now.
Sure.
What would you say give me two kind of relational, I don't know, not situations, but what would you say would be one of your struggles or one of your, like if we're looking at codependency and where I kind of have a hard time speaking up or where I might compromise or where I deny, what would you say is one of the relationship issues that you're working on that kind of pops up and activates you?
Now?
Yeah, like over the 8 years, like has there been a certain issue that you notice keeps coming back that you're working on?
No, not really.
No, not at all. Okay.
No, I mean, it's weird. It is. It's very strange. But I again, I have my boundaries and I have respect for her. Her feelings matter, and so do mine.
Nice.
And we're and we're like that. She's a normie, which is good.
Got it.
I say very often I'm not her first alcoholic, but I am her first sober one. So yeah, right. I mean, she's had,
Yeah, she's been around.
Oh yeah, she has. Yeah. And she's dealt with us for most of her life. Her father was an alcoholic and blah, 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 blah. Right. And so we have this really cool relationship where we understand each other, yet we completely don't. And that's okay. We understand that we don't understand the other side of it. Right. And it's wonderful.
Right.
It's great, and we support each other, and we she knows if I've got to do something sobriety wise, she doesn't resent it at all.
That.
Yes. Well, she understands how important it is from both sides.
Right.
Right. And it's kind of the same way, her normie stuff, whatever the hell that happens to be. I don't know. But yeah, we give each other space, yet we're very close.
Nice.
It
sounds like, I mean, I always say the most important thing is willingness to grow and willingness to communication obviously is huge.
Right.
And like you're talking about, being able to hear, the thing about communication is people don't realize this. You can validate someone's experience without agreeing with it.
Oh, absolutely. Right.
Yeah. And it's so important to be able to say, hey, honey, I really get you can be angry about that, or, validate whatever they're experiencing.
Absolutely.
Even though you don't understand it or don't even agree with it. So
absolutely.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
I mean, politically we're kind of opposite.
Yep.
and that's fine. We don't talk about it a lot. We talk about it enough, though, especially like right now,
Right now, right.
Right, exactly. I mean, she hates Trump. I think he's a
Right.
buffoon. But, I'm not real fan of the other side either. I'm not a fan of
Right.
either side.
Right.
But, it's stuff like that. I mean, it's just.
You can accept each other's differences, though, which
Yes.
is really cool. It sounds like you work
we respect
through that.
them.
Yes.
I mean, I understand
Yes.
where she's coming from. She understands where I'm coming from. And, you're going to love this. We have never screamed at each other ever in 8 years. We just, which blows us both away. But we
I
just
think that's
don't.
awesome, though.
Yeah, right. Because I mean, it's like no. If I get to the point where I need to scream at her, what the fuck am I doing in the same room with her?
Right.
But
I do think, you brought up a really great point. I think processing people's anger or working it through in whatever way you're doing it with your sweetheart, it's like, to me, that is so critical, because I think most people are so afraid.
Right.
Either they're blowing up and taking it out, or they're repressing it.
Right.
And it sounds like you're at least acknowledging it and it's there. But
right.
To repress really, it is not good either.
And quite frankly, it's not much. I mean, just it's like, again,
right.
If I'm that angry at anyone, I don't care who it is, if it's Bill, if it's you, if it's anybody, if I'm that angry with, what the fuck am I having any kind of relationship with them? Why? If they're making me that mad, I don't want you in my life. Because
oh my gosh, you're saying another really important thing. Bill, we're getting to you next.
Oh,
the
no,
other
you're good.
important thing is about the anger. And I totally believe this, that 97% of the time, 99% of the time you're really angry, it's not about the present moment.
Oh,
right. So
if you're that angry, you're scared to fucking death. It all comes from fear.
Exactly. So yes, exactly. It's usually, like you say, an old fear. And usually you can go back and figure out what it's about. Like, what is getting activated, what fear is getting activated, and what event in your past is this particular thing reminding you of. Right. So you can do that. And I mean, at least you guys seem to know that. A lot of people don't know that.
Oh, I know.
Gee, when I'm screaming at my kid, it's not about my kid. It's about me.
Right. And I don't, you know what? I don't scream at anybody anymore.
Which is awesome.
Yeah. Why?
I totally am with you. I remember saying to sponsees, like, we don't get the luxury of doing that anymore. Like, if you're doing sober behavior, you're not screaming at people.
No.
This is called adulting. We're talking about things. If you have intense feelings, then deal with your intense feelings. We don't get to take them out on people.
No, we don't. Yeah. And again, it all comes down to, I'm old, I'm tired, I don't have that much time left. I'm not wasting it on
Amen,
being full of turmoil. I was promised a new peace and a new serenity, and God damn it, nobody's fucking that up.
Amen.
Yeah, and we talk about that a lot, as far as the Mike always says, I've wasted too many calories in my life. I'm not wasting any more calories on whatever the thing is. But that's true. I mean, if we are getting so angry about anything, in my opinion, if I get to that point where I'm completely lit up about something, I need to figure out what it is. Because if I snapped at the person in front of me, I think you're right about that. 99% of the time, it has nothing to do with this person that's in front of me, unless they were, you get somebody who's nitpicking, but still that could be based on something else. And I try really hard to try to figure out, okay, what is my fucking problem right now?
Right.
Because that's not me to blow up right now. And then usually, like you said, Sarah, is that we can go back. I can usually pick it out and, like, okay, and maybe it's a work thing, maybe it's this and maybe that. And then it was this, Mike and I talked about this just a couple of weeks ago, but it's a constant thing we talk about, is this fear-based stuff, that everything's based in fear. And it came up, I think, as a revelation to me on this podcast, probably, what do we think, Mike, 2 years ago, I think?
Yeah.
We were like, 6 months into this thing, and we started talking about something, and then I think Mike brought up, or we were doing a reading, whatever the deal was. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, and then everything from that point forward, whether I'm, if I'm angry, if I'm anxious, if I'm upset, if it's this a negative emotion that I have, it'll take me a minute sometimes. There's maybe
Yep.
2 or 3 steps back I have to take, but it's fear-based, and it blew my mind.
Yes. Always.
But I'll tell you what, it's been such a huge tool for me because I don't have to look that far anymore.
Right.
If
Oh
I am
God, yeah.
wound up about something, I'm like, okay, where's the fear? And
That's right.
as soon as I find it, then I can work through it, even if I have to. This, quite honestly, has become, I don't know if it is much for Mike. Sure as fuck has become a therapy session for me being on this podcast every week. I can't even tell you the number of things that have popped up in conversations where I'm like, huh,
Yes.
really?
Yes.
Or that's what it means, that's what it says, that's what it is, that's how I'm
Right.
feeling. I'm like, God, I never thought about it. But it happens so randomly. We never, I'll hear something on a podcast and we start talking about it, and Mike he'll take this road over here a little bit, and I'm thinking
Right.
here. And then, these putting these two things together, it's these all new ways of looking at things, and it's been spectacular. It's been great.
Absolutely.
I mean, really,
Absolutely.
it's crazy. Who would think that, and literally the only reason we started this, get together, have a conversation, talk some sober shit, do whatever. But it was doing it to have fun, just the two of us. We never thought that okay, great. It benefits a few people out there. Wonderful. Good for you. Thank you for listening. Go tell somebody. That's great. But I think it's really helped us. Um,
So true.
just it's added a whole new piece, a void, and I mentioned that to begin with when we first started this. I didn't know I had a void, but this filled a void
Right.
that I had in my recovery that I didn't even know was there. It was cool.
Got it. Is it because of the connection, like just being in connection with people, or you and
No,
Mike being connected, or
just
just
having
having these conversations?
just an
Just the
open
exploration.
an
Yeah.
open, unbridled conversation with
Yes.
no direction. Yes,
Right.
I write down notes. I write down little one-liners, that I get from readings or hear from other podcasts or things like that. But I'll, if anyone out there that's listened for a while, we'll usually do a reading to begin with. We've got sort of structure, right? At least we do a
Yeah.
reading, right, Mike, to begin
Right.
with.
Yeah,
You know,
that's about it.
but then it's a 5-minute reading, but sometimes it's a 10-minute conversation or it's a 30-minute conversation.
Yep.
And we both read that thing that same day, or that at some point we've read it before. And then, just little things are like, how do you feel about that? Or did we ever talk about this? And we get into these conversations. So what it is that it's just a completely open and, again, unscripted and
Yes.
unedited conversation that we have every week that we wouldn't have. It's not like Mike and I didn't talk when we
Right.
did, or when we do spend time together, but we don't talk like this. We do in a loose sense, but it's been, I guess, if I, again, quote unquote, structured, way for us to have these conversations, which, again, they've been, like you said, the why behind it is just that it's opening up things that we
Right.
can't predict.
Yeah, it leads to, I mean, that so often happens when you just made me think of, like, when I say to people, when you have an upset, like a lot of times we don't know why we're having an upset, right? Just like you're saying, you're having a conversation and you're learning things you didn't even know that you were going to learn that was there. And
Right.
it's the same, like, one of the tools that's so great is, I say this to people in recovery, like, and I know you guys have had these days, I have them, where you just have something like you're just a little off, but you're not sure why. And what I do is I write across the top of a piece of paper, and this will help any of your listeners who are struggling. You write, what am I afraid of? What am I angry about? Or what am I sad about? And usually, if you do some free writing and you just write, you just whatever comes to mind, you get to what is the underlying feeling state that's creating this kind of unsettled feeling. And usually, it might have been a resentment that happened a couple of days ago. It might have been some grief that you felt when you saw a friend relapsed. It might be some fear in a relationship. So often our emotional states are kind of percolating under there. And especially if you're someone in recovery, I mean, my God, I would have an event happen and a week later I'd have the feeling. You know what I mean? It's like they weren't lined up because I was so used to just putting a substance, like, let's just forget that feeling, that it took a while to have an event and an experience and the feelings happen at the same time. And especially if you're busy or you're at work or you got a busy life, a lot of times we have all these experiences and we don't really know something started percolating until we're kind of sitting by ourselves and we're irritable, restless, and discontent, or we're just kind of off the beam a little and we don't know why. I mean, those are the feeling states that can lead to some self-discovery. Of course, there's other things like, getting connected with people, or whatever. But yeah, that's kind of a helpful tool sometimes if you're feeling a little off. But Bill, what about your relationship stuff? Are you going to share anything?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But based on the time though, let's take a. What do you think?
Oh
Might
my
take a
God,
break
we
and
gotta
then we'll
take
get
a
back
break.
into
This
it.
is called a teaser.
That's right.
We'll be right back
go
with
ahead.
we'll be right back with Bill's fucked up life.
Right after these words from our sponsor.
Hey everyone, it's your friends at Sober Not Mature.
Hi there.
Yes, it's both of your friends this time. Hi Mike, how are you?
I'm well. How are you, Bill?
I am doing well, but we do have a purpose. We actually usually talk about our one website, but we actually have two websites now. So two websites in one. All right, so everyone knows we still have the podcast website that is www.SoberNotMature.com. And we just launched the store website, so we also have that. Do you know what the website address is on that one, Mike?
Of course I don't.
It's pretty easy, Mike. It's www.SoberNotMatureShop.com. So but from the podcast website, you can still hit the store link and get into the web store, or you can access it from our Instagram page through the highlights. We've been posting quite a bit about it, and we'll continue to do that. But do you know what's on the second website, Mike?
Well, there's a store. There are products that you can purchase for you and your loved ones.
Well, Mike, do we still have merchandise?
We have merchandise. Well, we got T-shirts and coffee mugs and all kinds of crap.
And one of the coolest parts, we also do have all the recovery books from Hazelden, which is kind of a big deal.
That is a big deal.
At least for us. So all the books that we read, God Grant Me, 24 Hours, the Big Book, the 12 and 12, all of those books are available for sale on our website. And once again, that store website is www.sober.
Trying to help, man.
I know you are. You're not helping though. Okay, now I got to say www.SoberNotMatureShop.com. .com. Visit that today, or visit the podcast website, which is, again, the podcast website. So
www.SoberNotMature.com.
Did you just say sober but not mature?
Yeah, sure. Write that down.
Yeah, like fucking mush mouth or something. All right, everyone. You've suffered enough with this, and we'll get back to what we were talking about previously. So visit the websites, though. All right, everyone. Welcome back. You think I'm joking, right? God. Okay, Dr. Sarah, buckle up. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm ready. Buckle up, fasten your seatbelt.
No,
baby.
this is really, I think, very simplistic. I'm sure there's more to it than this, but I can explain this very simplistically.
Okay.
Prior to sobriety, every woman I got involved with, I fell in love with. Okay, in a sense, I didn't know it at the time, but I know it now. I would fall for people and fall hard and fall fast. Okay.
And was there a certain type? Meaning, were they angry women? Were they women that were unavailable? Were they was there a theme?
No, because like my first wife, although she can be my daughter's mom, she can be very strong and whatever. She's also, I would say, more of a, not necessarily we didn't line up. Like I'm kind of headstrong and I guess stubborn and dominant. She can be too, but not necessarily as much on a relationship level. So but then when I met my second, it turned out to be my second ex-wife, she and I line up very well from our humor to our determination to our stubbornness, to how we care about people and love people. That sort of thing was very much the same. But those relationships went two different directions. The first one, I was young. She got pregnant. We got together. We kind of grew apart as people. I don't think we really knew each other very well. Whereas the second one, um, you want to talk about, it was flaming hot, or it was really really good, or it was really really bad.
Oh my God, my first marriage. Yeah,
Yeah, so we went,
I
but
get
I
it.
mean, she's a wonderful individual, and both of those relationships ended because of me and my who I am and my drinking and all. Just at different levels in different states, but it is what it is, But there
So
really
those were
wasn't.
during the drinking years.
Yes,
Yeah.
but
Okay.
I didn't have a type as far as, quite honestly, I never really. I'm not necessarily attracted to real meek and mild women. I don't want to be, although I am a control freak, I don't want to be in a relationship. I don't want to have to always validate somebody. I don't want to always be the one that makes decisions. I do like stronger women and
Got it.
more, people that are more on my, I don't want to say on my level, but that we see more eye to eye with that part of it. I don't like that role of, because maybe my dad
Caretaker
was,
or
yeah, my dad was more of a almost like a 50s kind of guy. He was the worker, this and that. I was never,
oh,
where my
got it.
mom was a different way. My mom was an extremely strong woman, so was my sister. And I think I learned from those two people. Okay. Now since I got sober, and I didn't really date much in the first handful of years. I
Yep.
had I had one circumstance, you know,
I love the
that's it.
word.
There wasn't it was a mutual thing. We got together. That
Yep.
was it was that was it. But the first time I actually started dating, I was probably 5 years sober, and met a sober person, and then met a few other sober people, mainly people through dating apps and that sort of thing.
Yep.
And the thing of it is that I've had a variety of circumstances happen throughout that time frame.
Yep.
I've had women that, a couple of people, two individuals that I've spent time with over the years that, were sober, drank, and I walked away. Drank or used,
Wow.
and I walked away. One
Yep.
was really tough, and I knew it. It wouldn't be admitted, and I walked away. Still friends. We reconciled all that stuff. One was said she was cool, with what I was doing. Like Mike said, if he's got something to do from the sobriety standpoint, he goes ahead and did it. She said she was cool with it, knew what my deal was, but then started giving me some stuff, and I'm like, if you can't deal with this,
Wow.
and certainly if you can't trust me, I can't hang with you.
Wow.
Um, One other person, very controlling. To begin with, we got together as friends, but ultimately, she was like, okay, this is I cool, kind of have more relationship type of thing. Obviously, that turned more of the intimate, and then she had this plan where she wanted to, be married by a certain point, and this and that. And
Oh,
I'm like,
wow. Got it.
I don't even know where I'm going to be in 5 years, and that was probably 7 years ago, and I'm on a completely different path from where I was then. But
Got
the
it.
thing of it is, here's what I learned, and I don't remember where I
Okay.
learned it from, at least of myself. I learned how to love people on different levels.
Mm.
And the love that I have for Mike, for instance, is different than the love I have for my children.
Yep.
I could tell either one of my ex-wives, it probably make them uncomfortable, but I love both of them, but not the way that I was when we were married. That was marriage love and intimate love. But I have not been in love since I've been sober, and I know the
Got it.
difference. I know what it
Yep.
feels like. I thought I could have been with a couple of individuals, but those things didn't last. And I will not settle. I'm not going to, I don't know that I ever want to get married again, not for any other reason. I just don't see the point. I can't have children
Right.
anymore. I wouldn't
Yep.
mind having again, whatever you want to call it, a life partner, whatever. But it's not completely out of the realm. If there was some reason and it felt right, I would do it. I can never
Yep.
say never. But the thing of it is that, and it kind of popped into my head when you were talking about something before, Dr. Sarah, but it reminded me of, it's a horrible movie, sort of good, sort of horrible, Jerry Maguire.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Renee Zellweger in there. She's
Right.
talking to her sister about the men she's been with, and she's like, I've had three lovers in the last 5 years, and they've only compared, just shy of a good book and a warm bath. And now I don't read books in a bathtub, but I understand what she means.
right.
I don't
Right.
if I there I don't know. I know what it's like to be in love. I know what it's like to be really comfortable with somebody. I
Yep.
don't want to force a relationship.
Yep.
I'm fine at this age. I'm almost 56 in a couple of weeks. women our age or within our age group don't seem to want to date anymore. Everyone wants to get married. I'm fine with dating people. I don't see what's wrong with it. I'm
Absolutely.
not a pig. I'm not out there one night standing. I'm out there, trying to hook up with people and all those sort of things. That doesn't feel right to me. I don't have the desire to use somebody as a human masturbator, because that's
Right.
really what it
Amen.
is.
Yep.
I mean,
Yeah, but I
sex
think
is
that's a sign of growth. I think that's
eh,
great.
but the thing of it is that there's certain times when I've had choices to to spend time with somebody versus doing something else, and I'm like, I'm okay doing this,
Right.
or will this person understand? But to that point, back to this people pleasing, there's two individuals, two of the people that I've mentioned through this thing over the last 5 minutes or whatever it's been. When I knew shit was getting bad with both of them, and
Yep.
I basically I canceled both of them. There was separate times. I wasn't seeing both of them at the same time, but in both circumstances, they wanted to do something, and I said no, and I knew it would cause a problem.
Got
And I
it.
was fine with it because at that point I'm like, let's see if I can fix the glitch because I can't stand this. And to that point is I if I could avoid conflict without saying I was done and knew when they'd walk away, I'm fine with it.
Got
But
it.
I knew that it was at that point and it was just I'm like, okay, either I have to make a decision, but let me test this and see if it's that bad
Right.
because I
And
thought
it
it was,
was.
and it was.
Yeah.
Because just
Right.
me canceling, do you want to get together and have dinner on Wednesday? Yeah, but then something came up, I can't. And like, you know what? This isn't working. If you can't even
Right.
do this for me, and I'm like, okay, I knew it was going that way.
Right.
But so the I
But there,
think
you said some great things, though. You said you know you're not going to settle,
right,
and you know what you want, and you're not going to get married when you're in a different state. And I think all those things are really positive. And I mean, to not stay in relationships that aren't working, I think is huge because we both know people that stay in relationships that aren't working.
right.
So I
And
think
and
all
I've
those
been
things are really good.
and I've been in two, and I learned stuff. The
Yep.
women, my two ex-wives were not the problem. Yes, everyone's got a part in everything. We all get that,
Yep.
But I have reconciled with both of them. I can not only be in the same room with them, I can hang out with them, I can have fun with them. I can, I get hugs from both of them. I mean, I have these. I have these good, solid relationships with these people that I completely fucked over in a bad way, really. But I mean, I've been able to rekindle those things, which is cool. But like I said, I mean, there are Mike and I were talking about. Was that last week? Lonely versus loneliness, or
Yeah.
alone versus lonely?
Got
Okay.
it.
Yep.
And like I alluded to the fact that the only, and I don't feel lonely not being involved with somebody of the opposite sex. I do. I miss that connection because
Of
they're
course.
and I was laughing when you said the first 3 months because that right out of the gate, maybe it's both of them. You figure out right what is the appropriate time where you guys can fuck is kind of what everyone's trying to get to, without
I
I mean,
love
without
you.
people
Right.
feeling like, okay, I'm a slut or I'm a pig, so that thing. But on top of that, it's that true, it's that fire, it's that passion. It's like early sobriety, these early parts of
Yep.
these relationships. But the key there is okay, what happens then?
Yes.
Can I deal with the person? Do I want is a warm bath and a good book better than going to hang out with this person? And Mike's girlfriend,
It's
Chris, I mean, she's a normie, but she's one of us.
Hmm.
And that's the other big part that I think, Mike, not that you failed to say it, but that you didn't
Hmm.
include, is the fact that she is deeply, deeply involved in our community, and I mean the sober
Right.
community.
Hmm.
She does things with us, but the other turn, and Mike makes a point of this all the time, is that he's there for her. For
Hmm.
like he said, whatever she wants to do, charity things and all this sort of things. It's
I've
this
got to do
mix.
one tomorrow.
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah, and that's what made me think about it because yeah, when I texted you the other day about that other thing that we'll talk about next week, but
Hmm.
it's just it's this give and take, and it's really hard. The biggest problem that I've run into in this again in these dating things is
Dating.
that
Yep.
dating apps is like I try to be upfront. I match with somebody and then little back and forth, little ha ha, poke poke, how you
Yep.
doing? Here's who I am. Here's you. If somebody doesn't communicate with me, I'm done. If you can't have a conversation, if it's one word
Absolutely.
and 2 word sentences coming back, come on, open up to me. I want to learn about you. I mean, that's the whole
Yep.
fucking point.
Yep.
But I tell people, I tell them that I've been, I don't drink. I'm sober. It's important to me. Maybe it's important to you. I've had people say, hey, good for you. I'm proud of what you're doing, but I do like to have some beers. I do like to drink some
Right.
wine, and this is my life. I don't think we fit. Thank you for telling me. Go on your way. Be
Yep.
good. But
Yep.
then these other people, like, what, kind of the what are you looking for? I'm looking to this and that. And if you're looking, I'm like, I don't, my honest answer to people, I don't know.
Got it.
I don't fucking know you.
Right.
I met you
Right.
4 minutes ago. We've had 17 messages, and you want me to commit to the fact that I'm in this, that my goal in this interaction right now with some fucking person on Bumble is marriage? No, it's not. I will
I
not
am
say that.
so with you. Plus, it's out of fear. I mean, people want it's so crazy because you guys know this. Like a lot of people, and I'm not saying it's necessarily just women, but this kind of addiction to security and this delusion that, oh, if you say you're going to marry me or you're going to be my partner or whatever, that somehow that fulfills some need from my childhood that I am now safe and secure. It's such a delusion. Do you know what I mean? So when people need that really quickly, it's like instead of having this process, like you just said, it takes time to get to know somebody. I mean, it takes quite a while to see if you like them. Do you have things in common? Are you on the same page? Can you communicate? Are they sober? Do they respect your sobriety? Do you have the same sense of humor? I don't know. I mean, it's really important,
I mean,
and you deserve to have that connection.
all of that stuff, and I don't care if it's an intimate relationship or a friendship. Mike and I walking down the street, not given the fact of how we got, we ended up together at the same place at the Keating Center. There's no reason we've figured out. There's nothing, no reason on the planet that we ever would have met.
Right.
And we never would have had the opportunity to realize how well we click as human beings.
Right.
And it's ridiculous. We have variances of our thoughts and beliefs and feelings and whatever the case may be. Slight
Yes.
variances, but we respect each other's
Right.
opinions and that sort of thing. And neither one of us go, oh, listen, you fucker this and you this, that.
Right.
But we're also honest. And I mean, I know I can trust him. There's that sort of
Yes.
thing. But that's the point. That didn't happen overnight. But
No.
the whole
No.
the whole relationship thing too. And again, one individual, to begin with, I try to be upfront with people. I'm like, I I want to I am open to anything. That's what I tell people. I am open
Got
to
it.
anything, but it has to happen organically. It has to happen naturally.
Yes.
I go into something, I want to meet somebody. First thing I want to do, if you think that based on this conversation back and forth that we connect, let's meet, let's have a cup of coffee, and
Yep.
let's see if there's any connection and any chemistry. After that point, then we can decide. Because the rest of it
Yes.
is fucking irrelevant if you can't stand to sit across the table from me, you know? And then at
Yeah.
that point, this again, this
Good
one this
point,
this
Bill.
this back and forth I had with this one individual, which I do. I love her to death on a level. Again, these levels of love. It's just we shouldn't have tried to be involved that way, and both of us know it.
Oh,
But
okay.
but at one point, she's like, so you don't want to be in a relationship or whatever. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm like, I've been honest with you from the start. I said,
Right.
we spend time, we have a great time. This little piece over here in this other room is really fucking good, but it's not just that. We can have conversations. We both like this a lot of the same things. We truly enjoy each other as human beings. And I said, if you want me to lie to you, I can do that too. But I said,
Right.
I'm not going to.
But there
When
was no attraction.
there was. I mean, again, as a I enjoyed her, every part of her. I loved her on a level, but not to that level where I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. It just there wasn't that complete
Sorry.
whatever the deal was, and I can't explain. I know what it feels like to be in love, but I don't know what the formula is to get to that point. I mean, I do, but I know if it's not there, and I know you can't force it.
Right. Right. Right.
So, but I mean, when I was before I got sober, I would have lied. I would have been just like, "Oh yeah, that's okay. Yeah, future plans. I'm right there with you."
Oh,
Because, like Mike was saying before, being around with women to basically support you. I'm sure you told him any fucking thing.
Yeah, you goddamn right.
I mean, why wouldn't we, right?
Right.
You know,
Pay
I
my
know,
rent,
but right.
buy me food, and I'll take care of the booze.
right.
But you're right, because dishonesty, I mean, that's going to just affect us in the long run. I
Oh yeah,
mean, if
it'll
you're
hurt me more than
dishonest,
anyone.
right?
Yeah.
It'll absolutely, and it's a risk of your recovery. If we stay dishonest long enough, I mean, come on, yeah, it's
Yeah,
going
we
to be a
start
risk.
compromising that stuff, and then we start
That's
compromising
right.
everything.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
people don't think about that. These little, whether people call them little white lies or cutting little corners or doing those sort of things. That same thing we were talking about a few weeks ago. The things we do, the readings and the processes and whatever it is. Neither one of us, and it's been you want to talk about a good fear. Both of us are scared to fucking death of
Mhm.
changing
Right.
anything up in our program. I mean, that's a healthy fear. I don't want to
Right.
change my prayers. I don't want to take a reading out. That's what Mike is
Right.
joking around. He's like, that's why I never added a fourth book, man. He goes, because I read 4 books in the morning. He reads 3. He's like, that's why I didn't add a fourth book. He goes, I don't want a fourth book. I can't take it out if
I
I
got the
start reading it.
formula.
If I start
Right.
once, yeah, that's right. I can't take anything away. I know that.
Yeah. So here, another thing that I wrote down, that, you talked about it. I think when I re-listened to your other episode, I don't know, a month or so ago, and I think trauma and triggers were brought up in there, and both Mike and I have opinions on them. I mean, they're
Mhm.
pretty clear and pretty easy, but I think you said somewhere along the lines of, again, don't get me started on, or that's a whole other topic on. And I think it might have been trauma, but I don't know. Do you want our opinions on them first, or do you want us to tell how you feel? Pick
Well,
one or
it's
the other,
funny.
or
There was some Facebook post the other day, and I wish I had it. It was like something like, not everyone that has a bad day has depression. Not
Mhm.
everybody that's had uh, disappointment is traumatized. Not everybody, like, it was this whole thing about how, and I don't know if this is what you're talking about,
Mm.
that everybody now has a mental illness,
Mhm.
basically. You know what I mean? And I mean, I feel both ways about it. On one hand, I mean, I have a 22-year-old, and he says his whole generation, I mean, everybody's really open now about if I have anxiety, if I have depression, if I have PTSD, great.
Mhm.
But at the same time, like, depression and anxiety disorders and PTSD are diagnoses. They can be very serious, as
Mhm.
well as addiction, right?
Right.
So it's like, I don't throw around the terms lightly. Like, having someone feel grief because their girlfriend broke up with them
Mhm.
is not a clinical depression.
No.
Now, if they are still, if they're suicidal 6 months from now, yeah, then we can look at it. But I guess I think, the word narcissism, the word trauma, the word, like, everybody just throws stuff around a lot.
Mhm.
And I don't know. I mean, again, on one hand, people are finding a voice, but on another hand, it's like,
They're finding excuses.
yeah, we're all responsible. And I feel this way, and you guys feel this way, that once I got sober and started doing step work,
Mhm.
like, these are the words. I am responsible, period,
Mhm.
at the end, right?
Right.
For what happens to me, for how I feel, all of it.
Mhm.
And it's not about blaming anybody else, no matter how horrible your life is. It's like someone was saying the other day, like the amends piece. Like,
Mhm.
I make amends to people, even if they did horrible things to me or treated me poorly.
Right.
right,
That's not my part.
right.
My part is what I did to them.
Mhm.
So maybe this is a whole different tangent.
Hmm.
But the bottom line is I'm responsible. So what do you guys think? What were you talking about? And I missed it.
No, that's absolutely it. Yes.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah,
right.
No,
yeah.
All right.
that's yeah, perfect. You're right. That's just it. Like I said, excuses. People,
Right.
I'm traumatized. Okay. Well, but they're not taking responsibility for themselves. Yeah, I've been traumatized in my life. Sure, most people have.
Absolutely.
Right, but so what? Most people have. Just about
Right.
everybody has.
Right.
90%. There is that 10% that probably hasn't.
Well,
And
especially if you have an addiction issue. I
right.
mean, you
Yeah.
know,
Well,
I'm sure shit has happened.
yeah, but I also can't use that as an excuse
No,
for my
it's not an
addiction.
excuse.
Because
It's
see,
just
because
information.
I'm
Right.
right, I'm an addict because
Yes.
I fucking want to feel good all the time. That's a
Right.
selfish thing. Bill Wilson got that one dead right. The root of our troubles is selfishness and self-centeredness. Right.
Yeah.
I have to take responsibility for everything. I have to take responsibility for my feelings being traumatized. I have to be
Yes.
responsible for okay, so then how do I deal with it? I can sit there
Yes.
and dwell and sit in it and feel like shit, or I can get up out of the
Yep.
shit and make my life better.
Right.
Despite the
Yes.
fact,
Yes.
we talk about, that's, the three pillars of our sobriety is making our bed in the morning, eating pizza on Friday night, and spite.
Yeah.
Those are the three pillars of our sobriety. What do you mean I can't stay sober? Fuck you.
Yeah. Right.
And
Yeah.
that is 100% how our spite thing started. That we got sick and we're driving to a meeting, because Mike and I used to drive to meetings together. We were at the Three Quarter House, and whatever it was, and I don't know which one of us brought it up, but I'm like, you know what? I said, these fucking statistics that I'm hearing, 98% here and 20% over here. We'd be in a room and they're like, take a look around you, take a look to your left, take a look to your right. Two of these people will not stay sober, and it was pissing me off. And I said, you know what? I said, I'm staying sober just to piss these motherfuckers off.
That's right.
I'm like, these statistics. I said, fuck them and
Fuck
fuck
them.
you. And we were maybe what, a year or so,
about a
maybe?
year, yeah,
Right.
barely.
Yeah, we were like in a year, and then Mike's sitting in the passenger seat. And he's like, yeah, forget about helping ourselves and our family and not hurting other people. We're just doing it to fucking piss people off, just out of spite. And swear to Christ that
Oh
we
my
live
God,
by
that
that, and
kills
we use
me.
that. It's a
Yeah.
joke, but it's really not.
No, but I get it. Yeah. Absolutely.
But with the
Absolutely.
real quick with the trauma thing, so the other part of it, like Mike said, 100%, we agree with you, everything that you said. And the thing that bothers me the most, and we've been guests on a couple of podcasts,
Yep.
and no offense to any of the podcasts out there, we're not these people to ask these questions, but I mean, everyone's trying to say, okay, so you're an alcoholic or you're a drug addict. What happened to you? Okay, so what happened to you when you were a child? What led you to? What are the deep down things? People will say, have you really dug in, or done that deep dive and figure out what made you
Wow.
start drinking? And I'm like, both of us are in the same opinion. We're like, okay, so here's the thing. Yeah, I had some things. I think Mike and I have had conversations. He's brought up a few of them on here. I think he's had a few worse things happen to him than I did. I mean, but it doesn't fucking matter.
It doesn't matter.
You can't compare pain. I always
exactly,
say that.
exactly. So again, from the event side of it, a couple more points over there to Mike, but that has nothing to do with the fact that he and I ended up on the same goddamn doorstep.
Right.
And he lived this life over here with his few more points of this and his Hollywood life and all this shit. And then I'm over here doing my thing and whatever. And then we end up at the same doorstep. Now, the thing of it is that both of us are of the opinion that whether we were born this way or whatever, we are who we are. And like Mike said, we both drank not to drown the trauma. We drank because we like the effect. We like the feeling. It's the selfish, it's the self-centered part of it. And it's baffling to me that some people are still that, but they still would say, but yeah, but what else? Why does there have to be anything else? I don't need to. The thing of it is I've worked through all these fucking people. And I mean, my mom and I for years, who turned out to be our mom, Mike and ours mom, Mike and I's mom. For years we, as a child, there's some shit that I didn't like the way that how she acted or whatever. We had this terrible time for about 5 years in my teens and whatever.
Got it.
These difficult times. Okay, but then I fucking gave it right back to her. We had this volatile relationship, and I know why, and it's not part of it. I know why of, and all these different things. None of that matters. I turned out to be and drank myself, through marriages and all this different shit. And then at the end of it, I had the opportunity to go back to your point before, Dr. Sarah, and I made my amends with her. Probably, I'm sure there was some things that she apologized or acknowledged, but there's a ton of shit that she never brought up again,
Right.
But here's the other thing too, is that I know what happened to her when she was a kid. I know what happened to my uncles. I know how my grandpa was, and I know that my grandma never did anything to stick up for the kids. I know how my grandpa was treated, So this generational thing, granted, all these things happen and people grow out of it. It has to do with how do you treat your kids? How do you treat your spouses? How do you treat your, your siblings? How do you look at the world? Are you still a fucking racist in this day and time? You know
Right.
what I mean? I mean, all these things, you
Oh,
go back 60 years. I'm not giving people excuses, but some shit was different back, 60, 70 years ago. But what about now? You know?
right.
So our
You
whole
have said
point,
so many good things. Go
well,
ahead.
it's just our whole point is that I don't want to be a victim. I don't want to play a victim. I need to straighten my shit out, take care of my shit, treat people the way that I want to be treated. Clean up my side of the
Right.
street, regardless of what other people do. And you know what? I've got really good people in and around me in my life. I don't have
Right.
whatever trauma happened. It doesn't fucking matter.
Right. I mean, my whole point, and one of the gifts of the program is it happening right now? Then shut the fuck up.
Right.
All right. So this is what I have to say about all that. And that was great. Everything you guys said is this is the thing. Shit happens to everybody, right? So, like you're saying, did you have horrible stuff happen? Sure. Just like a lot of people. And are there degrees? Sure. But at the same time, like I say, everybody's pain is different. My only thing is, I think it's like the both and. It's not either or. It's like, yes, you can have these horrible things happen and you can take responsibility and you don't have to be a victim to it, right?
Right.
It's both. It's being able to acknowledge, and give space to what's happened and to take responsibility for it. And I think what you're talking about is where there has to be some huge reason or explanation. Geez, if I had this history, then that's why I drank. When if you're in the program long enough, there are people that said nothing happened to me. My
Right.
parent, I had a great childhood or whatever. I mean, you've had those people and
Sure.
people that have had trauma like Finn on the podcast. I mean, my God, I don't think I've heard a worse story than, foster homes and sexual abuse and, molested by his therapist. I mean, it was endless. So, I mean, there's people like that and there's other people that everybody's different.
Right.
And he's one of the best examples that I love. That's why I love to do the show with him, because he is not a victim. And again, he knows that all this horrible stuff happened and we are responsible. So I get it. When you're talking about the podcast, though, I remember literally, I think it was the first one I ever did. I sent the woman the book and I was kind of dressed really professionally. And I thought, she's going to have read every bit of it and ask me specific questions. And really what she wanted was the down and dirty, entertaining stories of addiction. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And it was so interesting to me because I felt like I don't want it. Like I'm so much about the solution, like you guys.
Right.
Like I'm very solution focused. I don't want to spread the mess. I want to spread the message, all that stuff. And again, not that there's not a place and a time to tell some stories for people to identify, and maybe that's why she was asking me. But on some level, I kept feeling like, oh, like the worse it is, the more she'll like it. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So there was this weird kind of feeling like, oh, that's what this podcast is about. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, and I didn't know anything. So it's just interesting. You're right. I think you learn a lot about kind of people's agendas, what they're interested in. Are they sincere? Do they really want to get to know you and connect? Or is it more about how they want to present? I don't know. There's a lot to it.
Right.
So I agree with you guys.
And with the other podcasts too, and there's nothing wrong with it. And I listened to the quite a few, not recently, but there's a couple that I listened to where people get on there and they tell their full stories, and it's
Of
very
course.
structured. And the guy that there's one guy that it'll come to me, but it's a really good podcast. His name is Brad. He's out of Canada. He does very well and does a great podcast.
Yep.
Sober Motivation Podcast. If anyone
Yes.
hasn't listened to it, if you want to hear good sober stories,
Yep.
great podcast. But I mean, that podcast is set up for a really long drunk-a-log usually.
Yep.
And then, kind of a little bit, sometimes people will split it up nicely, to get more of the solution. But I think that we've had some people on here that don't don't really know what our deal is. And when Mike does his line, we started it relatively early going, okay, fuck this. People are not going to spend an entire hour telling us drunk stories. So
Right.
Mike always says, it's like, Mike, tell him how we do things. And he goes through his thing. And I think some people are thrown off. They're like, I can't tell my story. Just give us a background. Give us a
Right.
little bit of why
Right.
you're here.
Little bit, but
Right.
yeah, I mean, what I always say is, we know how to get fucked up and we know how to fuck up our lives. We know how to do that. We want to know about the
Yes.
solution.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
And it's so much better. Now, I get it. If we had somebody on here that, and I don't say only because I want to take away from time is time, but we had somebody on here that was, a year sober or something like that, which we did. Carly, I think, when she was
Yeah.
on here,
Right.
she was 9 or 10 months or something like that.
Huh.
But she had a lot going on outside of just not just being sober. She was doing some shit. So it was a lot of conversation that we had with her. But I suppose that then same thing. That first lead, it's all about what do you got to talk about. You've only been sober for a year, and I say only, but but as you get people that are, 3 to 5 to 10, what have you been doing? How do you stay this way? Because that's kind of the whole point of the sober curator, everything that Elise always talks about,
Right. It's
that's
about
what that,
staying sober.
that's
Right.
what that website's supposed to be about and what that podcast is going to be
Right.
about. So, real quick, and I want, before we, I don't want to say run out of time because we could talk, I
I
suppose,
know.
as
I
long
could
as
have
we
gone
want,
off on
but
18 tangents right then.
no, it's okay. But what I want to do is I want to give you an opportunity, talk about your book, exactly what the name is. Two things I want to tell you is that in the episode description that people are listening to right now, there is a link to your website. I know that
Oh, beautiful. Yep.
that's a link to everything that Dr. Sarah does.
You're the
Okay.
best.
But please explain to people, because that's the other thing. We love just shooting the shit with you, but talk about
Oh my God. I
that
could
in the
talk with you
podcast and
guys for
that.
hours. I know. So yeah, if you're interested in kind of learning about me or learning more about codependency and what I talk about, definitely go to the website, drsarahmishow.com. And we also, my buddy Finn and I, he's an attorney. He's been sober like 8 years. He's transgender and he's hilarious. And it's so funny when you talk about you and Mike and why you guys got together to do the podcast. And it's kind of more about you than anyone else, because I often say to Finn, I'm like, look, I think we're hilarious and I have so much fun doing it. Like, I don't even care if people like watch it because we are having a ball. And I
Right.
mean, of course, I want to help people like you guys do. But really, I want to have fun in sobriety. I want to live my life in sobriety. And so we do a YouTube channel called Leaving Crazy Town. And basically, we kind of each week talk about a different topic of codependency, whether it's finding your voice or setting boundaries or obsessional thinking or whatever it is. And then we give some tools and tips and we try to have fun. So that's the YouTube channel. And some of those episodes now have become a podcast, the Leaving Crazy Town podcast. So we're going to start putting out new episodes in another month or so. So yeah, and the Sober Curator. I write articles like Bill does for the Sober Curator. And that's a lot of fun also. It's a great community. And by the way, Bill, we should say that go to the Sober Curator website, because right now they're giving away a huge prize of 50 quit lit books and a bunch of other things if you enter to win. So that's something we should promote. I was just thinking about that. I just got that email today.
Yep, and it's thesobercurator.com, and you'll see it
Yep.
on there, or you can click through their Instagram page under the same title. But yeah, it's 50 recovery books. Like Mike Travis's book is in there, Dr. Sarah's book is in there. I didn't look through all of them, but it's everything, just about
Yeah, it
everything
is
you could think
everything.
of. And yeah,
Yep.
it's 50 of the books, and then yeah, might be some other things in there, but I don't remember how long it's going for. But definitely, yeah, by all means, go on there. Everyone that's listening, we've tried to kind of steer people to that direction. Anyhow, it's whether even if you're brand new or you've been sober for 25 or 40 years, as some of us on this podcast have been. There is something on there. It's got a whole bunch of wonderful stuff, and all three of us are part of. There's going to be a podcast coming out that all three of us are going to be involved in through the Sober Curator. We all just did our intros. We did some things with that, some promos, so it's going to be a lot of fun. And it's another way, and I guess, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, it's another way that we can kind of give back to this whole thing, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Help another addict. You got it.
And then, so you're, and I was so happy to hear that, that your podcast that, because obviously, at least not obviously, but I think she helped you flip that into a podcast, right?
Yes, she did. Yeah. Yeah. Because I'm lazy, basically.
Welcome to the club.
But
I mean, yeah, if it's not simple, I don't want to do it. So she had the idea, and we've gotten a lot of good feedback. I mean, a lot of people like you guys listen in their cars or listen, and you can't, well, you shouldn't watch YouTube when you're driving. Not that people don't, but so it's just more easily accessible. So, and they're just little clips, unlike you guys, they're just like 10 to 15 minutes, little clips.
Unlike you guys.
I mean, unlike most podcasts.
No, I know.
Right.
A good hour or whatever.
Well, and I forget where I was, and it might have been, again, month or so ago. I think, actually, I think when I was driving up to Wisconsin, so back in, I don't know, August or whatever it was, July or August, I went to the beginning and started listening to it. And it is, the difference between, what we're doing, an hour and a half or whatever. And yeah, people, if you're listening to this and you get tired of it, you could pause it and listen later. I mean, everyone's got that ability. But the cool part about, the Leaving Crazy Town in a podcast form like that is literally, they're these little 15-minute clips. I probably listened to 10 of them, and because I had, I don't know, a 2-3 hour drive, whatever it was. And I mean, they're just playing over and over. And it's you guys and all of them talking about it's these little nuggets of sober information or sobriety information or codependency information.
Yeah.
And like I said, I think that's when I heard that line about everyone has some sort of codependency stuff. But it's great. And to me, I don't watch things on YouTube. We have a YouTube channel. Everything gets posted automatically. All our episodes do.
Okay.
But there's no video to it.
Right.
I've heard that. I mean, if we truly wanted to spend the time to grow, we could do something and YouTube, I think, is the best way to grow as a podcast or as a media source. But there's a lot of work, like you said.
Right.
It's not easy. Whatever. We're just not at a point where we want to push that sort of thing. What we're doing now is perfectly fine. But yeah, I mean, literally you can click through, it doesn't matter whether you're on Spotify, Apple. I don't know. Some of these ones you're not able to click through, but you'll see the website link, on this episode description. It's in there, and just look it up. You'll be able to find Dr. Sarah's website and get to everything that she's talking about. But that's what I was trying to figure out.
Thank you so much.
No, it's fine. And I know I did it last time, and we never know if any of this shit helps, but the thing is worst case scenario, if people click through, who knows, if it, and somebody had said that to us not too long ago, that, I mean, we don't know who's listening. We know it helps people, what we do every once in a while, which is fine. Again, it's great. But even if it's like one person every once in a while, it's cool. That's what more can you ask for, right?
Yes, absolutely. Giving it back.
So, I mean, we're obviously running up probably a little bit towards the end here. So anything else, Dr. Sarah, that you want to, I don't know, touch on or tell people, like wrap up in the next, 5 or 8 minutes or whatever?
Yeah. I mean, I would just say, listen, a lot of times people, I'll say I wrote a book on codependence and they'll say, oh, I'm not codependent. And this happened to me recently at my dentist's office. So there's like 5 women in the main office there. And so I brought in a couple of copies of the book and they all said they weren't codependent. And I asked them a few questions. And the next thing you know, everybody's codependent. So, I mean, this is the thing. It's like, this word is thrown around like nobody even knows what it means anymore.
Right.
But basically, it's really healing from codependency is really about coming home to who you really are. Mm-hmm. In fact, the name of the group was called Coming Home to Yourself. That was the name of the codependency group I did online for several years. And that even sounds kind of esoteric, but I want you to really think about when you're with other people, do you feel like you can be your authentic self? Or do you feel like you need to kind of adapt or acquiesce or say certain things because you're concerned with what they are thinking or feeling? So I just want your audience to think about that. Do you might be like Mike, it's just like, fuck them, I'm going to just be who I am, and that may be true. You may be able to just be who you are, or you may have some defenses operating that kind of keep you from being your true self. And the thing with it too is, and I say this also, is that, and it's just the same with addiction. When you heal from addiction and you heal from codependency, you have a clearer connection to yourself, you have a clearer connection to others, and a clearer connection to a higher power. So that's really what it's about. It's about getting rid of all that stuff that's blocking you from getting to know who you are, from getting to know others in a true sense, and getting to have a spiritual life. So that's really the last thing I'll say, is that really take a look, listen to a couple of episodes, get a copy of the book, whatever will kind of get you curious. And then, there are solutions. And everybody wants to be, I say this in the book, every addict wants to be 72 and sunny, right? I mean, that's what I spent my whole life trying to do. Okay, I'm just going to have this many drinks, this few lines. Oh, now I need to smoke a joint. Oh, now I need to take a Valium. Now I need to do another line of Coke. Like, I'm always trying to get to this certain spot.
Exactly.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so this is about, once you take those substances out, oftentimes we don't know who we are. And oftentimes we are just reacting to the external world. But becoming sober from substances and healing from codependency is really about being comfortable in your own skin and being able to identify what you need and want, and have healthy relationships.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, and just real quick, based on what you said, it actually, when you were talking about being in a room around people, when you feel like if you can't say whatever, I literally started to feel sick to my stomach when you just this uncomfortable feeling. Because here's the thing, that thankfully, I mean, I work remote now and in this and that, and I don't have to go to these work functions, but that's one area. Or sometimes just being involved or being invited to something where you just don't know everyone, you're not sure, and then you're listening to some of these fucking blowhards, and you're like, oh my God, I don't want to be around this. But that just reminded me too, and I never thought about this before, this is one thing I think about from a dating standpoint is, hey, what if I meet this really cool chick? She wants to hang out. She's cool, but then I hate her fucking friends. I'm like, oh, now I can hang around these fucking people now.
Oh my God. We could do a whole other episode. My 22-year-old, his girlfriend just broke up with him, his first love of 2 years. And it was a huge issue because she was at college and he'd go visit her and he'd come home and he'd go, oh my God, I can't stand those people. So, I mean, it is an issue. If you have someone, that would be a whole other talk. But yeah, it is. It's tough.
Well, you know what? I think this, and Mike, I'm going to speak for you here, okay? Dr. Sarah, you can come back whenever the fuck you want.
Absolutely.
Because I'm
ready to do deeper dives with you guys.
No, I know, and that's the fun part. Because last time we talked a lot about kind of on the outskirts of everything, and in this time was I think we only talked about 3 topics. I think I didn't write anything down.
One.
Yeah, or one. But the description is going to be very vague on purpose, because I knew when we have somebody like you on, I don't really make a lot of notes about what we talked about, because I know it's going to go into a lot of different directions. But my point is that I think that the 3 of us could have endless conversations that I think would be not only fun and engaging for us, but I think that would be helpful to other people. So
absolutely.
I don't know. I mean, we don't have to plan anything right now, but just let's put it this way. You are welcome back any
Oh,
fucking
you
time.
guys are so awesome. I love talking to you. I feel like you're my people and we always relate. Yeah. So
it's a
I
lot
am
of fun.
so happy. Thank you so much for having me on the show again.
Oh,
It's been great.
You're very welcome. But now it's Mike's turn. He's going to do a couple of things, and then remember, Dr. Sarah, do not hang up after
I
we're
will
done.
not
Okay?
hang up.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for listening to another episode of Sober Not Mature. Thank you, Dr. Sarah, for hanging out with us tonight. And as always, be kind to each other, be good to each other, go out and do something nice for somebody else this week, and don't tell anybody that you did it. Now, from the bottom of my heart, to the depths of my soul, from the beginning of time to the ends of the earth, always and eternally, fuck you. And now it is time for you to fuck off. Then keep fucking off. Keep fucking off till you get to a gate with a sign on it saying you cannot fuck off past here. Climb over that gate, dream the impossible dream, and keep fucking off forever.
Oh my God.
Our really good friend G from Colorado gave Mike that one about the fuck you part. So yeah, that came into another part of the conversation because I'm like, oh, I'm surprised you read that 2 weeks in a row. And he's like, well, fuck. He goes, I can't stop now.
I can't take anything away. We've discussed this over and over again.
Yeah, he added another part to our closing, and now he's stuck with it. So. I don't know. It's I can't say anything more, but my God, Dr. Sarah, we had
I love
we had a
you
great
guys. You're doing great stuff, and we will stay in touch.
time.
Absolutely.
We will. All right, love you guys, and
All
I
right.
know
Love
that
you.
we will all talk
Okay.
soon, right?
All right. Talk soon. Okay.
All
Bye.
right, bye.
Bye.
Bye. And now it is time for you to fuck off. Then keep fucking off. Keep fucking off until you get to a gate with a sign on it saying you cannot fuck off past here. Climb over that gate, dream the impossible dream, and keep fucking off forever.